Now, I'm an optimist, raised by two optimists. And so I went through scripture looking for people of faith, and I came up with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And you can find them in the 3rd chapter of Daniel, or in some translations, it is the 2nd chapter of VeggieTales, where Rakshak and Benny have found themselves in trouble because they won't bow down to the giant chocolate bunny. And they're about to be thrown into the fiery furnace. And before they do, they say to the king, "Look, our God can save us. Our God will save us." And then I think one of them looked over at the furnace and said, and this is what he says, "Even if he doesn't, we will not bow down. We will not worship an idol." God can, God will, and even if he doesn't, that's an interesting tension. It reminds me of this thing called the Stockdale paradox. You can Google it, Stockdale paradox. James Stockdale, Admiral Stockdale, was in a prisoner of war camp in Vietnam for 8 years. And here's what he said about how to survive a crisis. He says, there's a paradox. We have to, I'm going to look it up because I want to get it exactly right. We have to have complete faith that we can and will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties. But, he said, at the same time, we have to have the discipline to confront the brutal facts of our current reality, whatever they might be. I think we're going to be back in church. I plan to celebrate Christmas in the sanctuary. God can, God will, but what if God doesn't? My friend's mom is sick. God can, God will, but what will happen to my faith if God doesn't? My brother is in the concert business and in the newspaper business. His revenue, the livelihoods of the 300 people who work with him are dependent on folks getting back to work and shopping again. God can, God will, but what if God doesn't on our time schedule? My sister-in-law is in the movie business. Her only revenue is selling popcorn for pickup. God can, God will, and even if God doesn't, I will stand on this rock that has served me in the past and will serve me in the future, saved me in the past, will save me in the future. The paradox of optimism tied to reality checks, hoping for the best, making plans for the worst. God can, God will, and even if God doesn't, I will stand in faith.